Well, hello. I just wanted to take a few minutes to sit down with these really amazing women who are three of our current caregivers here at the Aphasia Center. And I thought maybe could you go around, introduce yourselves, and just say your name and maybe where you're from?
Sure. I'm Greta Miller from Rockwall, Texas.
I'm Debbie Kopak from Templeton, California, Central Coast of California.
And I'm Jamie Alish from Remsen, Iowa.
And I'm Brian. I live here in St. Pete. You probably talked to me on the phone. And if you haven't talked to me on the phone, you should call me and talk to me on the phone. But so there were just a few questions that I thought maybe we could talk about today and get some different perspectives and bounce some ideas off. But the first question I had was, you come from various corners, actually kind of extreme corners almost, through the perimeter of the states almost, if I think about it. Have you ever felt isolated, like you were the only family that you knew of that had aphasia?
In the beginning, after Corey first had his stroke, when we were at the rehab hospital, there were others that had aphasia, and he was in aphasia groups. And but when we went home, that was a totally different story.
Yeah.
Our friends and family have been phenomenal stepping up and trying to include him. I'm not sure Corey so much feels isolated. It's probably a little more me, although I can't say that for sure because he can't communicate that to me. But at home was a big adjustment for me to kind of go back to the routine and try and find some normalcy back in life again. And it seemed like everyone else's lives just continued on, and ours was kind of stuck with that lapse in communication between the two of us.
Yeah, I got that. What about you guys?
I think very much feel isolated, and I think Tim does too. The area that we live in, everybody's stroke is so different, and we don't know anybody else other than at rehab that has aphasia that's in our immediate group. And I think a lot of people don't even understand what aphasia is, so even when they're talking to you or dealing with you, they're, well, does he understand? Does he remember? And you have to go through that whole explanation. He's all there.
Right.
You got to treat him normal.
Mm-hmm. What about in Texas? You had mentioned to me that you had spoken to some people who hadn't heard about this practice before here.
Almost no one had heard of this.
Right. So was there a community in Texas that you were able to get ideas from, or?
Not really, just from individual speech therapists, but I've never been exposed at all to a caregiver group at all. Our situation is a little bit different because we have a son-in-law who has aphasia following a stroke 11 years ago, and we have a dear friend who has aphasia following a stroke 18 years ago. So we're often with those people who cannot speak, which has given us a little more insight. With Frank's stroke, we have better insight into their life, and they in ours. But I would say that we do feel isolated socially because there are not that many people who can cope with the difficulty in communication with someone who doesn't speak freely.
Absolutely. So now that you've come here and you've met people, yes, we're still in a therapy context, but what has it been like? Have you found any benefits just being able to visit with each other and get to hear each other's stories? What have you found?
I think for Corey and I personally, we've only been here a few days. And the fear of traveling this far, leaving our family and friends behind, was huge for us. But the moment we walked in our first minutes here with Dr. Lori, with you, and then having the opportunity to meet these other amazing families, and enjoying lunch together today, just kind of lifted my spirits and rekindled that fire to continue to push and work hard and educate people about aphasia. And I think being here, I already feel part of a family. I mean, I've spent time with you this morning, and then these ladies asked me to lunch today, and it was amazing.
Good, awesome.
Good for my soul.
So
Ours too.
yeah, do you have anything to add to that?
I think the connection with people who are going through something like this. I mean, it's like, I wish we didn't live so far apart.
I know.
Right.
Just as you get to know
it'd be fun to have a reunion or something.
Right.
where we
Well,
can
now
all
with the
get
wonders of
together.
the internet and Facebook, you can keep in touch with each other. But so kind of shifting then the conversation from caregivers and camaraderie and things like that. One of the things that we are talking about in the office this month is not comparing your journey or your loved one's journey to somebody else's, to their process. It's very easy to get distracted saying, oh, well, their stroke was only 6 months ago and look what they can do. And we were 2 years ago and we're only at this, has that come into play in your thought process at all, or into your loved one's thought process, and how do you then deal with that?
Absolutely, in the beginning for me, I did that. And I've learned that's not a healthy thing to do. Tim, I don't know that I don't think he thinks about it. But what I'm finding is the positive energy that's here helps me, it helps him. It seems like everybody we've met here has just been so supportive. And how can you not go
Right.
forward?
it's
Right.
contagious.
It is.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
positive.
definitely.
But here, it's fun to celebrate someone else's,
Mhm.
to hear Corey say hi or bye, or to hear Tim talk about something, or say happy birthday, sing happy birthday. Or it's just fun to celebrate with other people their progress. But I don't think Frank or I, either one, have felt like we had to compare to someone else's
Right.
journey.
I know for us that was hard, for Jason especially. I think it's because he's always been a perfectionist, and even all throughout school with his best friends, it was a competition for grades. It was a competition for who would get their teaching placement first, who would get this or that. And so you guys met Jason now, and his speech is progressing
His
really,
speech
really
is
well.
amazing.
Unbelievable.
But he
Yeah.
doesn't quite see that.
Oh,
And so
really?
people come in who have a totally different set of deficits, but all he will do is put his cookie cutter onto them and feel like it doesn't
Like I wish I were
add
there.
up. Exactly.
And I think Corey is very similar to Frank and Tim. I don't necessarily believe that he compares himself. I can get hung up on the fact that, as Debbie said, strokes can be very different and affect people very differently. And for a while, I would find myself saying to my mom, who spent the most time with me at the hospital, but they can talk, but they can talk, if he could just talk, But over this last year, I think back to the beginning where it was more just the blank stare and he couldn't communicate at all. And I fast forward a year and look at how he can communicate with me much better than he once could.
Absolutely.
And that just gives me hope. And I think here, he so desperately was ready to come here, clear back in February. And I think he has that hope and he has that drive and that motivation because he wants to continue
Yeah.
to progress forward.
Absolutely. So I think, in moments where if you find yourself comparing, it's always good to look behind you. They say don't focus behind you,
No.
but take a quick glance and see how far you've actually come, and I think that's probably super important. But
And we do celebrate every
We do too.
step
Everything.
forward.
Yes.
It's like
absolutely.
For sure.
any little word driving down the street, he sees a sign and he can read it. Or we were driving and he's way into cars, Tesla, Bentley. It's like,
Where are you
Wow.
driving?
Wow. I've seen those here. Yeah, I see them.
okay.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, thank you for sitting down with me for a few minutes today, and very much.
Thank you.
Bam,
Thank
that's
you.
done. See how easy that was?
Yeah.